Welcome back. Let's get something burning here. So today we're going to be discussing, if this works, it's not going to let me do what I really want to do. Can I get here? There we go. There we go. We're going to talk about combustion analysis. Yeah, that's Burning Man going on right there. Combustion analysis is a technique we use to identify the empirical formula of organic compounds, typically. Organic compounds being things made of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. We can mix a few other elements in that we can find in combustion analysis. If we know they're there, we can kind of test out and collect those as well. But we're going to focus on just carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen compounds for this class. So combustion analysis is a common technique. We burn it and we measure the products. So the products of every combustion is CO2 and H2O. So with CO2 and H2O as our two products, we can work backwards, a little stoichiometry. So whatever carbon is in the original compound will make carbon dioxide when we burn it, provided we have enough oxygen. Whatever hydrogen is in the original compound will make water, provided we have enough oxygen. So we got to make sure we have enough oxygen. And then to find our oxygen, we got to work backwards because we're going to have to add extra. So if we measure how much carbon we had and how much hydrogen had, and we know the total mass there, we can subtract it back to get our other compounds or our oxygen. Okay. So this is a basic combustion analysis system. We have a furnace with our sample. We pump pure oxygen in and tons and tons and tons of excess oxygen. We heat it up and it burns. The water absorbs into the first tube. And so if we weigh that tube before the reaction and then after the reaction, however much it went up is how much water it absorbed. And then the carbon dioxide absorbs in the second tube. And so however much mass it goes up is how much carbon dioxide we produced. So we weigh these before and after. So here is an example. This is a really funky compound. I can't even say it. Ketopentatonic acid. So 4-ketopentatonic acid is analyzed by combustion. It is found that 0.30, a lot of zeros, so a lot of significant figures here, 3 zeros there, gram sample will produce 0.579 grams of carbon dioxide and 0.142 grams of water. Now, your first thought should be, whoa, how did we make more mass than we started with? Remember, there is an excess of oxygen, okay? So, and this tells us that the compound, the acid, only contains carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. So what is the empirical formula of the acid? So the first thing we're going to have to do is take our, and let's see if I'm doing this with my finger today because I don't know where my pen is and I don't want to stop and go find it. Here is our CO2. We want to figure out how many moles of CO2 that is. And then we're going to take our oxygen and figure out how many moles, or our water, we're going to figure out how many moles of hydrogen that is. So that's going to be the first two problems we do. And I'm going to try and keep erasing ink off the slide as I go. So we take our mass of carbon dioxide and we convert it first to moles. So, and then we do a mole ratio. Now, we don't have a balanced equation because we have no idea what the hell this stuff is. So, but I do know there is one carbon in every one CO2 because there's only one carbon in the formula. So that finds my moles of carbon, and I need this value. That's going to be very, very important to me to finding my empirical formula. I go ahead and convert this. I think I repeated myself. To grams of carbon because I'm going to need that a little bit later. So took my grams of carbon dioxide, found my moles of carbon dioxide, converted that to moles of carbon. I'm going to record this, 0.01316, store that, and grams of carbon because I'm going to need that. Okay, so let's go ahead and clear my screen again. And let's go to the next one. We're going to do our water. Same deal again. You'll see, took our grams of water, converted it to moles here by canceling out my grams. I know my slashes are off a little bit. And then you'll notice there are 2 hydrogen in every 1 water. So I get my moles of hydrogen. And then I went ahead and found those grams. So these are my grams of carbon and my grams of hydrogen. Because if you recall, going back, bam, oops. Oh, come on. There we go. We can weigh my H2O absorber before and after to get that mass of water. I can weigh my CO2 absorber to get the mass of CO2, but those are only going to tell me how much carbon and how much hydrogen. What I don't know is my mass of oxygen. With these weight totals, I can actually subtract them from my original sample to find my mass of water. So let's clear that off, and we're going to jump back to where we were. So here's this. We're going to go ahead and clear all that off. So now that I have my masses of carbon and hydrogen, I can add those together to subtract from my original sample to find my mass of oxygen. And with my mass of oxygen, I can convert it back to moles. So here we go. 0.3 minus those 2 gives me 0.1260 grams of oxygen, which I can then convert to my moles of oxygen. So these are the 3 numbers I really need. Because if you recall empirical formulas, the first thing we want to find is moles of everything. Now we're going to divide all 3 of these by whatever one is the smallest, which in this case is my oxygen right here at 0.007875 moles. See them circled? There we go. Those are important to us. So divide them all by the smallest one, which you can see I did here, and I got 1.6, 2, and 1. 1.67 is pretty much 666666666 indefinitely, which is 2/3. So we're going to multiply all of my answers up here by 3, or the denominator I was given. So 1 and 2/3 times 3, and then 2 times 3, and 1 times 3. So this ends up being 5. This is 6, and this is 3. And I think I have this all worked out. So let's go ahead and erase all that gibberishly scribbles and show it to you right there. Times 3, 5, 6, 3. So those values, since they're nice whole numbers, become my empirical formula, and it's C5H6O3. That is the empirical formula of our 4-keto-pentatonic acid. That's not necessarily the molecular formula. That's the reduced empirical formula. So we have our steps for empirical formula. So that's how combustion works. We burn everything, we measure, and let's go smoothly back. We weigh our water absorber, we weigh our CO2 absorber, we burn it. We then calculate these 2 masses and subtract them from our original to find our oxygen. If these add up to our original sample, that tells us there was no oxygen in our sample to begin with, potentially. So that's also fairly useful information. And then we can find our moles. We divide them all by the smallest, and we get, occasionally we do have to multiply. If these all came out as whole numbers right here to begin with, we wouldn't have had to do any multiplication. It would have been super simple. Not a big deal. Okay, so now let's talk about hydrates. Hydrates are ionic compounds that have water molecules attached to them. They stick on. They've got to be an ionic compound. So in this case, it is magnesium sulfate is my ionic compound. And magnesium sulfate has 7 water molecules attached to it. So we would actually name this magnesium sulfate, whatever the ionic compound is. And then 7, prefix hepta from our molecular compounds, hydrate, meaning water. So 7 waters attached to it. The next one, COCl2 times 6H2O. Cobalt has more than one charge, so we need a Roman numeral. It looks like a +2 charge, so that's cobalt 2 chloride. And then 6 waters is hexahydrate. There is one catch. You can have half a water, and what it really means is 1 water shared between 2 ionic compounds, but we call that a hemihydrate. So it's a half water attachment, kind of weird. So these are a lot like empirical formulas, but instead, we'd actually find the mass of the magnesium sulfate in its moles. Then we would find the moles of water and divide them by the smallest one. So instead of doing elements, we're going to divide by the smallest compound, the ionic or the water. And water is always typically going to be greater, so that's how you will get these values. Couple big words, and I'm a little spooked. I don't remember exactly what I put on the next slide, so I'm going to look. Yeah, going back. Hydrates have their water. The other term is anhydrate, and that is one without water. Okay, so that would be just the MgSO4. How do we get an anhydrate? We heat it up. It's not combustion. We're not going to burn it. But we're going to make it really, really warm for a while until it's totally dry, because what happens to water when it gets hot? It evaporates. So if we can evaporate all the water off, so what we would do is we would weigh it before, get a mass, and that would be our hydrate mass, whatever this is. We would then heat it up, lots of heat, and we would end up with what's called the anhydrate, and we would weigh that. The anhydrate will be our mass of magnesium sulfate that we will have to then convert to moles to do that. The difference in the two weights between the anhydrate, 1, and the hydrate, 2, so 2 minus 1, will actually give me the mass of, oh man, that was really bad, my water, which I can then convert to moles. So I can do my mole ratio. And so we kind of chase that same basic process. That takes us to titrations. Titration is stoichiometry. It's just stoichiometry with solutions. And you've actually done a couple titrations using molarity stoichiometry math, because it's nothing new. It's just a fancy way to say stoichiometry. It's molarity defined step number 2. So to get something to moles, we use molarity. Oh, my light's turned off. Molarity is moles divided by volume. So to get moles, it's molarity times volume. Unlike gravimetric, there's no mass. We're not going to find the mass of anything because there's water everywhere. So what we will always do is we can't really measure like, oh, it's all gone because it was dissolved in solution. We can't magically see that. Pause for bells. I hope I'm not tardy. So we need another way to see it. We need another way to know it's done. Like the reaction stops. Well, in a clear solution, how do you know the reaction stopped? So we use what are called indicators, and indicators change color. Typically, these are acid bases. We also do these with redox reactions because they induce a color change. And so what we do is we run a amount of an unknown or a known into our sample, and we shake it until it changes color, like you can see in the little video there. The second it changes color, you got to stop. And that gives us a volume to use. And that's next class. So typically you'll be given a molarity and a volume, and then a second, either volume or molarity. You're given one or the other. And based on the molarity of the first one, we can use stoichiometry. We use our molarity to find moles, and then we use our mole ratio to find moles of the other substance. And then if we have the molarity, we can find the volume. If we have the volume, we can find the molarity. Yeah. It's really easy when you see it. Like a practice problem would be awesome. So do one. You don't really need me to show you, because again, this is just stoichiometry. It's it. Follow the rules of Chemland and kill the zombie. 1, you need a balanced chemical equation for your reactants. 2, convert something to moles. Guaranteed you use that equation right there. 3, use your mole ratio from your balanced chemical equation to convert it to whatever else it asked you about. So if it gives you molarity and volume of your acid, it's going to ask you about the base. Use 3 to get there. Once you have moles of your base, convert to the units they asked for. You're probably going to use this. You're going to have to change the format. Just to review, molarity is equal to moles over volume. That's it. Make sure your volume's in liters. Actually, you can cheat. If they're both in milliliters, it'll still work. You get this thing called millimoles, but you have to be converting all the way back. Okay, you can't leave it in moles. If it just asks for moles, you got to make sure you convert it to liters. So just a heads up on that. That's it for today. I hope you're having a great day. And until next time, let's keep up the good work. I don't know what to tell you. Get it done. Get it done, get it done, get it done. And that's how chemistry happens.